Well, with us now in the studio is Haras Rafiq, who is the Managing Director of the Quilliam Foundation. Sir, welcome to Al Jazeera. In that news conference, we've heard British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond talk about turning the tide against ISIL. Did you hear anything at that conference that makes you think that they will and that they can?
I think that it's always possible that they can, but I don't think at the moment we are actually really turning the tide, and we haven't even started doing that. I think, yes, we have contained ISIL. I think that the airstrikes are restricting their movements. The airstrikes are having an impact on their ability to earn revenue from the sales, illegal sales of oil, etc. But we still haven't got to grips with the whole ideological propaganda, recruitment narrative that they're using to bring in the foreign fighters from abroad. And I think that until we get to grips with that, or the coalition gets to grips with that, we're not really going to see any great inroads. And I think also it's disappointing that it's now going to take the Iraqi army another 2 years to be trained before they'll be able to take ISIL on. We forget that the Iraqi army has probably been one of the most expensively trained armies already, and if they're going to capitulate just as they did a year ago, then really is that the best strategy moving forward?
I mean, you were talking about how perhaps the propaganda war against ISIL is being lost. I mean, it's interesting looking at the countries that were there, these 21 countries. Who wasn't there, and what impact do you think that has?
Well, first, certainly Tunisia and Morocco weren't there. And Tunisia has probably the highest number of foreign fighters, and Morocco isn't that far behind. One of the things that has led to the success of ISIL's progression within the region is their ability to bring in people who are ideologically and theologically indoctrinated from abroad, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to actually indoctrinate others that are living there. And their ability to do that has been one of the key measurements of success. Now, if we're really going to tackle the indoctrination and the propaganda war, as I mentioned, and stop the flowing of foreign fighters, Tunisia and Morocco need to be part of the solution.
It's interesting, obviously, after the attacks on Charlie Hebdo and Paris, here in Europe, people have been talking about little else, and the threat of so-called radicalisation of young people here. And in that discourse, have you heard anything that makes you think that the governments now are changing their tack or taking it more seriously or dealing with it in a more effective way? No,
absolutely. I think that one of the things that our government in the UK, first of all, did wrong was 4 years ago they decided that because Osama bin Laden was now killed, that the whole threat was over, and that there was no longer a need to tackle the narratives, tackle the ideology, combat the non-violent extremist ideas. And one particular government department was tasked with actually coming up with that strategy, and we're still waiting. But what actually I think is encouraging, I was at the House of Commons yesterday with a round table with ministers and shadow ministers, and one of the things that is becoming quite clear is that finally our government here in the UK is going to publish, hopefully sometime fairly soon, a strategy on how to combat this ideology. And also we look at other countries like France, etc. OK, better late than never, but they never even had things like de-radicalisation programmes, rehabilitation programmes for people that have been radicalised. Again, France has made some announcements, and I think that the combination of hard power and soft power now is going to be used rather than just legislation, criminality and hard power on its own.
Haras Rafiq, Managing Director of the Quilliam Foundation. Sir, thank you so much for sharing your views with us.
My pleasure.